So without further ado, I think I will go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. I'm delighted to have Linda Hofshire, who is the director of the Colorado State Library's Research Service, as our presenter today. So Linda, I think I will let you take.
Thanks so much, Christine, and thanks everybody for joining in today to talk about bullet journaling. It's great to have you all here, and I see from as far away as North Carolina and Indiana. So let me tell you what we're going to do during the next hour. And so we'll spend a good chunk of this session talking about bullet journaling. Why would we consider bullet journaling, and then how? How does this work? Then I'm going to take a step back and think about productivity a little bit more broadly than just bullet journaling. And so I want us to think a little bit about how we can take advantage of whatever our natural tendencies are in order to really maximize our productivity. So we'll spend a bit of time talking about that. And then also I am excited to crowdsource your tips and tricks for productivity, your productivity secrets. So that is where we're heading. So I'm going to ask you to respond to a poll that you should be seeing on the screen, and you'll see which of these statements best describes your relationship with bullet journaling. So take a look at the answers and cast your vote. Great. Thank you to those who chose the option that you were a bullet journal dropout. You tried it and quit. I appreciate you maybe giving it another chance. And it looks like we have just a few people who are actually using it right now, and then kind of evenly split then between those who are at least somewhat familiar with it, but haven't tried it, and then some that aren't familiar with it. So that's great. And so no matter kind of where you are with your bullet journaling journey, I think there will be something for you today, as this may introduce you to the technique, think about how to implement it. If you are already using it, this may give you some new ideas, and I also hope that you will share some of your best tricks and tips around bullet journaling with all of us. So thanks. We can go ahead and end that poll. All right. So I'm going to invite you to share in chat maybe one or two productivity challenges that you're currently experiencing. So I invite you to share in chat, or if you don't want to share, just think about it in your mind. What's a productivity challenge or two that you're dealing with? And we'll see what's going on here with folks. I see interruption is already a theme, which doesn't surprise me. And then kind of project management. More stuff on projects. I see priorities is mentioned several times. How do you prioritize and then stay on task? Yeah, so lots of different challenges. Yeah, tracking multiple projects when you're meeting the like over kind of inconsistent intervals of time. Oh, and yeah, Erin, I know what you mean with the to-do lists, but then I don't know what actually got accomplished. Great. So it looks like everyone is dealing with at least one productivity challenge, and that's great. So we can all empathize with each other. So what I'd like you to do is, keep in mind what you identified right now as your challenge, and then think about, as we work through the curriculum, whether how bullet journaling might help you to address that challenge, or like I said, towards the later part of the session, we're going to talk more broadly about how, maximizing our productivity and sharing tips and tricks, and we'll see if we can reach some solutions or at least possible ideas to try to address these challenges by the time we reach the end of today. Okay, so I want to briefly just ask the question, kind of why bullet journaling, and provide a bit of an answer to that. So, I think it's good to have a purpose before we think about how to do bullet journaling. So, why bullet journaling? What's the purpose? And so I really like this quote from Kendra Adachi. She is a blogger and podcaster. She says that the bullet journal is like a potato. It seems boring and bland and easily replaced by flashier starches like couscous and black forbidden rice. But the potato is special not for what it is, but for what it can become. The potato is king simply because it can be whatever you want it to be. Yes, and Christine makes the point that you can add toppings to a potato to make it more exciting. And that's exactly, I think, for potatoes or for bullet journaling, this is the beauty of this method, because it's very versatile. I think when I tried out other types of planners and productivity management types of systems before starting bullet journaling, I kind of felt like Goldilocks, and I could never quite find the right solution. But the beauty of bullet journaling is that it is very versatile, it's very flexible. You can add and subtract to make it into a system that is very personalized for you. So that to me is the why. That is why we would consider bullet journaling. I will say though that I'm a fan of the potato even in the plain form. Okay, so in terms of the how do you then bullet journal? We're going to start by watching a short video that is by Ryder Carroll. He is the person who created the bullet journal, came up with this idea. He now has launched a huge movement kind of worldwide of bullet journalers. And so I'm going to let Christine explain how we're going to access this video, but this is going to give you kind of an overview of the central components of bullet journaling.
Thanks, Linda. So with Adobe Connect, sometimes watching videos can be just a little bit tricky. I think Windows is trying to overcompensate for copyright, which I understand. So what we're going to have you guys do is you can either click on the link on the screen and it will open in a new window for you. And you can hear it playing in the background for me. And I'm also going to put it in chat. And so what we're going to do is send you guys off to watch the video on your own. And then when you come back, in the upper left-hand corner, left middle-ish corner, there's a little white person with a hand raised. If you use the drop-down arrow next to that, you can just simply raise your hand to let us know that you will be back. There might be an ad that comes up right before the video, but it should allow you to get past the ad in about 15 seconds. And I think the video is just about 4 minutes. So we'll send you guys off. You can watch the video and then raise your hand when you come back. All right, so it looks like we have people coming back. Maybe about half of the people are back. Just a reminder, if you are back from watching the video, or maybe you chose not to watch it at all, you can use the little man kind of in the middle left top of the screen to raise your hand and let us know that you're back. It looks like we're getting most people back. We'll wait just about another 30 seconds, and people may have had different ads right before the video. All right, I'm seeing that we only have a few people left who haven't raised their hand. I'm going to go ahead and say that Linda can continue, and I will lower everybody's hands. So thank you for participating.
Thanks, Christine. So yeah, that video I like to share because it provides a very concise and visual overview of bullet journaling. I know it was quick, so let me just break down a little bit those components that Ryder covered during the video. So basically with bullet journaling, there are kind of 5 core components. And so those include the index, and then the future log, the monthly task list, and then the daily log. So the index, that first core component, is you can see on the screen right here, and this is literally just a table of contents. So the thing that's nice about having this, the table of contents, is it means that you don't have to worry about kind of guessing how many pages am I going to need for these notes or for this list if possibly you're going to be adding to it over time. It's okay if it's broken up kind of across your whole notebook because you have page numbers, so you'll be able to find it. You can see, for example, the second to last item in the index, drawings, starts in pages 27 to 29, but then it skips over to 32 and 36. So this just gives you a lot of flexibility and makes it easy for you to find things in your bullet journal. So then the second component is the future log. And so what this is just simply a place to record any events coming up in the future past that are farther out than the month that you're currently in. So we're nearing the end of September, but for example, the future log here, if I have something already scheduled for October or next April or whenever, this is a place to track those events. Then there's the monthly log and the monthly task list. And so the idea with the monthly log is that it is potentially a more detailed version of what you're keeping track of in the future log. And so when you get to the month that you're currently in, this would be a place where you could log kind of everything that is scheduled for the month. And then on the right side, that is a master task list for the month. So keeping track of everything that needs to be taken care of potentially this month. And often you might be carrying over some tasks from the previous month to add to this month's monthly task list. And then there's the daily log. And so this in the video you saw that Ryder was doing what he calls rapid logging. But the idea is really, this is almost like a diary in that it's something that you do every day is the intention. And so this might be a combination of different types of items. Some of it might be to-dos. Some of it might be that you're like taking notes, maybe from a meeting that you're in. You also might be documenting that you did something specific that day, like gave a presentation, as it shows in this example. But the idea is this is kind of your daily record. So for example, you might sit down at the beginning of the day and write out your list of to-dos for today, and then as the day goes on, add notes or track or document events, etc. So in bullet journaling, there are signifiers, and this is why it's called bullet journaling, is because of the bullet. And so the five primary ones you can see on the screen, but the idea is that the bullet and these other signifiers make it easy for you to keep track of different type of information kind of within the same block of text, because you've got these signifiers to help you distinguish, oh, that's a task or a to-do versus this is notes, or hey, I can cross out a task, etc. And so here's an example of someone showing how this works. So you can see they've got a lot of X's here because that means this is their to-do list, but they were able to cross a lot of things off. But you use those signifiers just so, again, you can put a lot of information, and I'll go back to this example as well. You can keep a lot of information kind of in one list or one area, but then you can quickly look through and say, oh, there's my tasks, or those are my notes, etc. And so this is really why bullet journaling got its name. A lot of people create their own signifiers in addition to those five kind of basic ones that I just showed. Here's some examples of people who've created their own so that you don't have to be limited by those five core signifiers, but for anything that you want to somehow be able to highlight in your bullet journal or note as being a specific type of information, that all, if you create a key for your signifiers, then that can help you navigate whatever notes that you're taking. And then in addition to kind of those five core elements of a bullet journal, a lot of people add other what are called collections. That's just a fancy word for any other type of information that you might be storing in your bullet journal in addition to those five core elements, such as the daily log, the monthly to-do list, etc. So here's some examples kind of from the work world of the types of other types of collections that people might keep track of in bullet journals. So they might have a master to-do list, or have a section in their bullet journal to keep track of current projects or ideas for future projects. If you're a supervisor, you might have information about each of your staff that you keep track of in your bullet journal. You might have your professional goals, that might be a collection. Maybe some specialized lists, such as conferences that you would like to attend in the future, and perhaps books either to read or keeping track of books that you've already read. So those are some examples of common extra collections that people might keep track of in their bullet journal. Oh, and Elizabeth asks a good question. Do you recommend a separate bullet journal for work versus real life? And if you're not familiar with the bullet journal culture, yeah, so people use Bujo for short to signify bullet journal. So I think the best practice is to have one bullet journal, and that you would keep both work and personal life in. And that's kind of that's the beauty of bullet journaling, the format of it, because it's so flexible. So you can use signifiers, collections, etc., just to help so that you can maintain all of the information in one place, but easily be able to differentiate. And Fred asks, how long did it take to master this method? That's a really good question. And I think for one thing, you can start small and pretty simple with this. So it becomes, I would say, like the basic elements of it become natural pretty quickly. And I'm going to talk in a little bit about like my process for using it. But by starting small, so maybe you even just start with like the daily log or something. as a way to manage your to-dos and notes and things, and then expand from there, it comes pretty naturally. All right, and I'm going to move on to a few more pieces of information, and then I'm going to get back to the questions. So in addition to these collections that you've seen here that are kind of, common types of other information that people might keep in their bullet journal, the other really popular type of information is a habit tracker. And so here you're seeing an example of someone's habit tracker, and the idea is this gives you kind of your overview of the month, and if there are certain things that you want to be doing regularly, this is a little way to keep track of it and monitor your progress. If you're looking kind of in detail at what in this example the types of activities are that are described, you can see that a lot of them might be more personal. And but if you're curious about what you might be kind of tracking on a regular basis at work, some of the things that I track or that I've seen other people track are professional reading. So I want to try to do reading of journals or other professional publications pretty regularly during the month. So this is a way for me to keep track of it. I've seen people keep track of inbox zero. So if they have a goal of getting to inbox zero, meaning they've taken care of all their emails that are in their inbox, that's something that could be tracked here. Social media posts. If you use social media professionally and want to make sure you're doing it regularly, this might be a place to do it. Another way I use it is to track if I'm trying to improve my skills at something and need to practice regularly. So for example, I've been trying to sharpen my skills using Tableau, which is a data visualization software program. And so this is a place where I can track how regularly I'm practicing. And yeah, I see the question from Elizabeth about the numbers on Instagram. And this, to be clear, none of the examples I'm showing today are mine because you don't need to see my handwriting. But it is, I believe, for Instagram, this person is keeping track of how many times in that day she posted to Instagram. So yeah, no, and that's fine. It's a good question, Elizabeth. I'm going to go back for a second because we had a question, or someone wanted to see the signifiers again. So these again are kind of the core or basic signifiers so that you can easily note tasks and then when they've been completed. If you're moving it to the next week, you can note that with the arrow, a dash for notes, a circle for events. And then these are just examples of the types of additional signifiers that people might create to customize the bullet journal for whatever their needs are. All right, and I am just going to catch up on a couple other questions. And yay, Karen, who uses her Bujo for everything. I'll invite you to share in a few minutes. We're going to ask for tips and tricks from our current bullet journalers. Yeah, and then Sharon asking about if you primarily chronologically enter from front to back. No, so the beauty of bullet journaling is that you don't have to keep this you don't have to worry about how many pages do I need for this project because I might get more information over time. Since you've got that index or the table of contents, you can just pick up again. So if you designate one page for a project you're working on, and then it turns out that you've run out of space, but the following pages have already been used up, just start again on your next blank page. And then because you've got your table of contents, and I'm just going to go back to that for a minute. We'll be there soon. Oh, there it is. Yikes, my fingers were too quick there. Because you've got your table of contents or your index, and that's what you're looking at here, you can easily find where if your project is spread out over multiple non-consecutive pages, you can just pick up on it based on you're keeping track of the page numbers in the index. So that, I think, is one of the big advantages of bullet journaling, is this type of flexibility. Yeah, and then Casey asks about that you fill a bullet journal pretty fast. And so what about if you want to track ideas if you have more than one Bujo in the same academic year? I'm going to share an idea for that in just a little bit when we look at the types of journals that you could use for bullet journaling. So hang on to that for just a second. Yes, and it is a great excuse to buy a new journal. And there's many options at this point. And question about color coding, personal versus work. And I think that is a personal choice. And again, the beauty of bullet journaling is you can do what works for you. I personally use a lot of different color codes to designate just different things. So not just personal and work, but I kind of enjoy using colored pens, so I might break things out even more by project or things like that. Laurel makes the point about giving up a calendar, and actually I'm going to address that in a little bit as well. Elizabeth asks whether you recommend a new book each year. I think it's entirely up to you and how you like to do things, but I know there's some people that fill up more than one book a year. So it also it depends on how much you're documenting, that you might end up with only a book needed every couple of years if you don't take a lot of notes, or you might be doing multiple books a year. Okay. I'm going to pause again on questions and just get through a few more pieces of information, and then we'll go back to questions again. So I want to address this question: do you have to be an artist to bullet journal? Because I think that sometimes this can be a barrier to getting into bullet journaling. And let me show some examples of why. So, if you look online at bullet journals, you may see something like this. So a little decorative, but not too over the top. But there are many great artists out there who bullet journal. They do beautiful work. You can see this is attractive and embellished. People like to kind of take this, personalize. You can see here someone's doing a lot with color. Here again, lots of details and some artwork going on. This is maybe one of the the more artsy things that some people add to a bullet journal. This is called a mood mandala, but the way this works is, well, if you're tracking mood, is that you're highlighting each day, you color a piece of this mandala. That's the decorative artwork that you're seeing on the right side of the screen, with the color that corresponds with your mood. So things can get pretty artsy pretty quickly. But my answer in terms of whether you do need to be an artist to bullet journal is a resounding no. Here's another example of someone's bullet journal. So, and I wish actually that more examples like this were out there, because these do not have to, the point is not for these to be attractive. The point is for these to be functional and to work for you. I will say that there are people who create printables for bullet journals. So for example, if you like something like this setup, but that's not something that you're interested in drawing on your own, someone sells a printable that looks like this. So some people literally print these out and just paste them into their bullet journal. And then they can fill in their own information, but they have the design already there. There are also computerized versions or digital versions of bullet journals. So if you don't want to use your handwriting at all, You don't have to. You could do this on an iPad, and I think I maybe saw a comment. Yeah, Karen, you used your iPad Pro. Yeah, so some people use a digital tool. There are apps for bullet journaling. So one thing I should mention regarding the philosophy of bullet journaling is Ryder Carroll, the creator, who the video you saw a little while ago, his philosophy is that the act of writing is important. There's a lot of research, brain research, that shows that we reflect more deeply and learn better if we're handwriting. And so he feels like, his philosophy again is that we should take advantage of that. Bullet journaling makes you slow down a little bit and be more reflective. But again, this is the beauty of this method, in my opinion, is that you make it work for you. Oh, and yes, Erin mentions, yes, you can get stencils too if you want to add some artwork, but maybe don't have the skills or time. Like, for example, this mood mandala that we're looking at, there you can get a stencil to create that. And thanks, Jennifer, for sharing that resource. So no, you don't need to be an artist, and there are tools you can take advantage of if you do want your bullet journal to look a little bit more attractive. So making it your own. So I want to share just briefly how I've taken this system and customized it to my needs, because again, I think this is a huge advantage of this system, is that you can take the pieces that you like and then and get rid of what doesn't work for you. So someone had said it would be hard not to have like a normal calendar. I still use Google Calendar and Outlook Calendar. So I don't have a future log. That again is kind of your upcoming months that you're keeping track of in your bullet journal. I just don't do that. I use Google and Calendar and Outlook Calendar. I do use the monthly log, and so that's just kind of that list of all the dates for the month, but more so to record just a brief description of whatever I accomplished each day. So that helps me to keep track of my productivity and for reporting at the end of the month. Instead of using that monthly task list that is one of the core components, I just have a running master to-do list. And so that way I'm not like kind of copying it over every single month, but instead I just keep that master to-do list in one section. And then at the beginning of each month, I look at what needs to be done and pull those tasks over to my weekly log. And so that kind of gets to the next thing. I don't use the daily log, which is sort of the central part of bullet journaling. That's that rapid logging. I use more of a weekly log, which includes my to-do list for the week. So you can totally take the pieces of this that work for you, customize them, and again, get rid of what doesn't. I also use Google Keep. If you're not familiar with that, it's kind of like Dropbox, but it's a place that you can just digitally keep, like make notes or post links or things like that. I use that on the go just in case I don't have my bullet journal with me. So I think a huge, again, advantage of this system is you can make it your own. And this is just an example, again, not my work, but I do more of a weekly log like this with the week laid out and the to-dos instead of a daily log. Okay, and so I also want to just share quickly, and it looks like that slide didn't come through. Oh yeah, there we go. Something looks funny at the bottom. But anyways, so
if you keep clicking, Linda.
Yes, got it. Oh yeah, that's okay. So just to give you a feel for how this works in practice, at the beginning of the month, I'll create my monthly log, my habit tracker. I also do gratitudes every day, so I create a log for that. I have a special collection that's projects, so that's all the projects that I'm currently working on. So I review that as well as just that running master to-do list, and then figure out what to-dos I need to add kind of for this month to work on. I also look at anything that was unfinished from the previous month and then make the decision of, do I migrate it, meaning like move it over to this month and get it done this month? Is it perhaps something that could be delegated or even deleted? does it not need to be done? The other thing I do that might sound a little over the top, but it makes me more comfortable, is I take just quick pictures with my iPhone of all of the month's pages for the previous month. Since this is analog, if it were to get lost, I would lose a whole lot of important information. So it just makes me feel comfortable to have a backup. At the beginning of each week, then, I just create my weekly log and my to-do list for the week. And then at the end of each day, I will look at what I got done, see if there's things I need to add to my to-do list, have that great feeling of checking off my completed tasks. And then again, on a daily basis as well, I make a decision about those remaining tasks. And then I complete my habit tracker and gratitude log. So that's just a little glimpse of kind of what this looks like in practice. In terms of bullet journals, and yes, someone commented how fun to get a new journal. There are many options. I'm just going to share. So Leuchtturm, and correct me if I'm saying that wrong, is one of the favorites of bullet journalers, and you can get them in many different colors. There is a special bullet journal version. That's what you're seeing on the right. So it has already like an index and a future log and things like that. Those pages are already marked. The one thing I would recommend is that it's much easier when you're choosing a notebook to have numbered pages so that you don't have to number them yourself. So there are a lot of notebooks, including these Leuchtturms, that have numbered pages, but that will make your life easier. Okay, I also want to share Traveler's Notebook. Anyone familiar with or even use a Traveler's Notebook? I'm curious to see. So we had a question about, well, you could fill up a notebook really quickly, but then what if you want to keep the same information about a project over the year, but you had to switch notebooks? This is a potential solution to that issue if you think that your notebooks are going to fill up pretty quickly. And cool, we've got a few people that use this. So the Traveler's Notebook, in that picture on the top, that black, that's like the cover. The cover comes separate from the notebooks. And then notebooks multiple, what you see on the right are the individual notebooks, and those all then go into your Traveler's Notebook. And there's sort of a flexible spine in there that you attach them to. And oh, so Jennifer, maybe this will get you to use them. And so what is nice about this is, let's say that you've got a lot of projects that you're keeping track of. You might just take one of these little notebooks, the craft paper covered notebooks on the right side, and designate that for your projects or even one project, and have that as one of the multiple notebooks in your notebook. And then another notebook would be maybe for your running, day-to-day tasks and stuff. So the beauty of this is that then you can swap out just different components at different times. So you can keep, like that projects notebook, you could keep in there through the completion of that project, but then there would be other notebooks that would be tracking your monthly log, your daily log, things like that, so that you would swap out more frequently. But this just makes it a little bit more modular, if that makes sense. And thanks, Jennifer, for sharing that link. I'll also share another maker a little bit later for the Traveler's Notebook. But this is a nice option, again, to make your system modular so that you don't have to worry about running out of space before you want to. Okay, I'm going to just take a couple minutes because we are running out of time, but just to ask whether we have any other questions about bullet journaling. And I love that, Karen, that you use an Apple Pencil with your iPad, so you're still getting like the benefits of handwriting. Yeah, and Monica, that's a great idea with having like the multicolored pen. She says she uses a four-colored Bic pen, so she's got one pen with multiple colors. Um, and someone asked Sharon, I think, about carrying your pens around. I A lot of bullet journalers also will use those little pouches to carry around their pens. Uh, And great question from Fred about what is your biggest challenge with this method. And I would invite any other bullet journalers to answer that question as well. Sometimes, like if I'm really, really busy, I'm like, I don't have time, like let's say we're switching over to the next month to set up all my pages, my new habit tracker, my new gratitude log, all the stuff. What I've found though is that I'll just keep pushing with like, even if I don't get that stuff set up at the beginning of the month, I'll just set up my next weekly log, start from there, and hopefully I'll catch up with the other stuff at some point. And so I guess that's kind of the idea of it, going back to the basics and keeping it simple if needed. Yeah, and Karen, that's a great point about that her biggest challenge is the review process, which that also, I am good at recording. It's hard to always take the time to review, but so important. All right, I'll encourage you to keep adding. And Yeah, and I'm just looking. So Sharon says I often have too many notes in too many different places. Again, I think is why the bullet journal can be a great solution, because it is one place where you can keep your notes about many different things, but it's organized again because of your index and the signifiers. And Jennifer, I would, to your point that it seems so daunting, I thought so too at first, but if you start with just a piece of it, like maybe you just start with the rapid logging, just to kind of get a feel for it, that can be very helpful. I'm going to keep moving just because of time, and I'm going to skip that for now. We're going to come back to sharing some tips, but I do want to kind of zoom out in our remaining time just to think about more broadly about productivity in general, because I think we can pick up different methods or tools such as bullet journaling, but if we haven't kind of figured out more deeply like how we are most productive, just taking a tool or a method isn't necessarily going to fix everything. So we need to think a little bit more deeply about how we can best be productive. And so the framework that I want to use to talk about that is the four tendencies. Let me know in chat if have you read this, or are you familiar with the four tendencies? This is a book and a framework that was developed by Gretchen Rubin. She's most famous, I think, for writing a book called The Happiness Project. Oh yes, yay, we even have people identifying their tendencies already. This is exciting. So in a nutshell, what this framework does is it gets you to think about how you respond to outer and inner expectations. And so outer expectations, that means someone else is expecting this of me. My boss has said, I need this by tomorrow, for example. Inner expectations are just what I'm expecting of myself. And yeah, Gail, we haven't done the types yet. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. And thanks for coming from Dallas. So inner expectations are like, hey, I want to start eating better. But that's just what I'm putting on myself. There isn't anybody else outside of me holding me to that. So there's four tendencies or types: the upholder, the questioner, the obliger, and the rebel. And how these differ, as you can see, is in terms of their relationship to outer and inner expectations. So if you're an upholder, that means that you respond to outer expectations. So if someone else is expecting you to get something done, you do it. If And if you're expecting yourself to do something, you get it done. A questioner resists outer expectations. They don't, they, they're not worried about what other people think necessarily, and they don't like if someone expects something from them but it seems kind of arbitrary. They need to see the reasoning behind it, or they question it. Whereas inner expectations they readily meet because to them they're doing what is logical. Obligers, and obligers are the most common, and I see that we've got a few people saying that they're probably an obliger. They readily meet outer expectations. So if my boss tells me you have to get this done by tomorrow, it's going to be done. But if I'm just expecting myself to do something, it's easy to let that slide. And then the rebel is resistant to both outer and inner expectations. They don't respond well to either. They are often entrepreneurs, actually. So I see, yes, that people are guessing. There is a quiz. I'll push that out at the end where you can take it, but often people just look at this and know, and it's kind of fun to see what you're identifying in chat. So I'm an obliger. And actually before that, here's one other way to kind of think about the four tendencies. So the upholder does what should be done. The questioner does what makes sense to them. The obliger does what others are depending from them. And rebels do things in their own way. And Sharon is correct that outer expectations vary depending on relationship. And also, typically even obligers aren't as responsive to people who are very close to them because they've almost made those people internal. So like if I'm trying to eat better, it's not going to help me to have my husband holding me to that. I don't feel the weight of his expectations the way I would to somebody that I'm not as close to. So how this plays into productivity is that you can really think about, okay, what is my tendency? And again, going back, how do I respond to expectations? And then exploit that. Whatever your tendency is, use that to help yourself be more productive. So for me, I'm an obliger. That means that I need to set up external systems of accountability. So I need external deadlines. So even if there isn't a deadline, I will tell my boss, for example, this is going to be done by this time so that I know that she's expecting it of me. It's helpful if I'm going to be giving a presentation, if I do it with a partner, because then again, I'll make sure I get things done ahead of time so that I'm not letting that partner down. When I exercise, I will often take classes that have a cancellation fee if you don't show up. And then the habit tracker, even though that's not a person, there's something about I want to fill in that little box for the day. And if I'm not able to fill it in, that's disappointing to me. So that's just a quick example of how I've set up my kind of my systems to make myself more productive. So I would encourage you to think a bit about kind of how you respond best to expectations as you're thinking about how to be more productive and whether that's implementing the bullet journal or other systems. Okay. We have just a few minutes, and so I think, Christine, I'm just going to keep this chat in the one chat window. But I would love to crowdsource at this point things that make you be productive. And so this could be, maybe it's technology tools. Maybe it's non-technology tools, such as bullet journaling. What are your best tips and tricks? And again, and especially bullet journalers, if you have any specific tips and tricks that you haven't shared yet in chat, would love to see those. Maybe it's a method, something like getting things done, the Eisenhower matrix, that, if you're not familiar, is basically weighing the urgent against what is actually important. Pomodoro, that's another method. Pomodoro means that you set a timer to work in 25-minute blocks. That's called one Pomodoro. So once you've set that timer for 25 minutes, you don't do anything until it dings. But please share, love to crowdsource tools, tips and tricks, or methods that have worked for you in our remaining time. And of course, also, I would encourage you, if you have questions that I didn't get to, please share those in chat as well. I'm going to push out, here's a link to the 4 tendencies quiz if you are, if you want to either figure out what type you are or get more resources about it. I like Karen's tip is to try to find blocks of uninterrupted time. And I think I've heard more and more people talking also about like time blocking as a strategy, so that they will set aside a block of time to completely get through one task. So like during this 30 minutes, I am going to clean up my inbox or something like that. I see a lot of tools. That's great. So Todoist, Evernote, Trello, I know that's a popular thing. And I also see a question about whether we can get a copy of the slides. Yes. Christine, correct me if I'm wrong, but it maybe the easiest thing would be to link that from the CSL in session post for this webinar. And Fred, I love the Pomodoro comment. So I think, yeah, I wish it included pasta. It's because I think there's these timers that look like tomatoes and you set the timer, but so it got its name from that. Yeah, great. Christine confirms that the slides can be posted on the CSL in session website. Yeah, and so you'll want to go to the CSL in session website to get the slides, because we don't have email addresses for everybody. All right. Yeah, I see several people mentioning strategies about somehow getting to a private spot where people can't find you. That seems to be huge. So we are almost out of time. I will encourage you to reflect back on the 1 or 2 productivity challenges that you identified at the beginning of the session. I hope that you may have found some possible strategies to address those, either through bullet journaling or some of the other tips, tricks, and tools that people have been sharing. But thank you so much for joining us, and Christine, do you have wrap-up words that you wanted to share?
First of all, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending today. I think this is probably one of the most engaged sessions that we've ever had. So people sharing their tips, the questions, and that kind of stuff. I'm going to email myself the chat and see sort of what nuggets I can pull out that were shared. We are always interested in your feedback about today's session. So there is a survey link on the screen that you can click on. I'm also pasting it in chat. If anybody needs a certificate for attending today, in just a second, I'm going to put my email in chat so that you can shoot me a quick email. And then our next CSL in session is going to be on Thursday, October 24th at noon, where Sharon Morris is going to share a wonderful discussion on the importance of play at work. So, and a huge thank you to Linda for sharing, for bringing up this topic. I actually saw it at the Colorado Association of Libraries conference a year ago. So I was able to snag her for this session. And once again, I will get everything posted on the CSL in session website probably within the next hour, so you guys can go back and revisit. So I just posted my email in the chat for those of you who might need a certificate. And once again, thank you all for joining us this afternoon, and I hope everybody has a great rest of your day.